Hello, this is the creator of Touched by Grace. Every story on this channel is written and edited manually. Nothing here is automated. Each video is crafted with care. Thank you for being here.
On a storm-torn night in East Texas, a mother stood at the edge of the woods, convinced her 9-year-old son had been hurt, or worse. Searchlights faded as officers prepared to suspend the mission, but then, high above the broken branches, she saw a soft blue glow, moving as if someone were guiding it. And the moment she followed it changed everything for her family. The storm had struck harder than anyone expected. By late afternoon, winds had ripped shingles from rooftops, knocked down fences, and scattered branches across the small town outside Tyler, Texas. Families stayed inside, waiting for the roaring sky to settle. When the winds finally calmed near dusk, 9-year-old Evan begged to step out into the backyard just for a minute. His mother, Sarah, exhausted after hours of securing the house, agreed, believing he would stay close. But storms leave behind a world that feels unfamiliar. The woods behind their property were darker than usual, the ground soft and uneven, branches cracked and leaning like fragile arms. Evan, curious and energetic the way only 9-year-olds can be, followed the muddy imprint of animal tracks toward the tree line, then deeper and deeper still. When Sarah called him for dinner and heard no response, her heart dropped instantly. The backyard was empty. The wind, still restless from the storm, carried no sound of footsteps or a child's voice. She ran across the yard, shouting his name, her hands trembling as she pushed aside low branches and looked for any movement. Within minutes, panic swallowed her. She dialed 911, her breath shaking, telling the dispatcher that her son had wandered into the woods after the storm, a place where fallen trees and loose soil had injured grown men before. And as the sky dimmed into a heavy, uneasy twilight, a terrible thought pressed into her chest. Something happened to him. He's hurt out there. By the time the first patrol car arrived, Sarah was pacing along the edge of the woods, gripping her arms as if holding herself together was the only thing keeping her upright. Officer Daniels, a seasoned deputy who had handled dozens of search cases, approached with a calm voice, but even he could see the terror in her eyes. "We'll find him," he assured her, shining his flashlight into the twisted mess of branches. But the beam revealed only more fallen trees, thick mud, and torn brush, the kind of terrain where a child could trip, slip, or become trapped without anyone hearing. Sarah's voice cracked as she explained how quickly Evan had disappeared, how the storm had left the woods unstable. "He's hurt. I know he's hurt," she whispered. "Not a theory, not a worry, a conviction. The kind only a mother feels when something is wrong." Search teams fanned out, calling Evan's name as radios crackled with updates. But every minute that passed without a response tightened the knot in Sarah's chest. The sky had fully darkened now, the clouds still heavy, making the forest feel deeper, colder, more unforgiving. She tried to pray, words she hadn't spoken in years. The sentences felt stiff, foreign on her tongue. "God, please, please keep him alive." But beneath the prayer was a sharper truth she couldn't shake. She wasn't asking for a miracle. She was begging that she wasn't already too late. The search stretched deeper into the night. Flashlights flickered between trunks, and the storm-broken branches scraped together in the wind like quiet warnings. Officers marked fallen trees with reflective tape, hoping to create a clear path back, but even their experienced boots slipped in the loose, storm-soaked ground. More than once, Deputy Daniels muttered, "A kid couldn't have made it far in this mess." Yet there was still no sign, no footprints, no rustle, no voice. Sarah stood behind the search line, hugging herself tightly, her breath thin and uneven. Every distant shout of Evan's name made her flinch, waiting, hoping for a reply that never came. The despair that had been pressing on her ribs now felt like it was sinking into her bones. Then, without warning, Everything fell strangely silent. The wind eased, the branches stopped moving, even the radios quieted for a moment, as if the entire forest were holding its breath. And that was when Sarah saw it. High above the shattered canopy, in a place no flashlight could have reached, a soft blue glow shimmered between the leaves. Not bright like an LED, not sharp like a rescue beacon. It was gentle, warm, almost floating, and unmistakably blue, the exact hue of the mantle Sarah had once seen in paintings of the Virgin Mary. The light moved, slow, steady, sliding deeper into the woods as though it were guiding someone. Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Do you see that?" Several officers lifted their lights, and for the first time that night their faces changed, from determination to confusion. Because they saw it too. The blue glow drifted deeper into the ravaged woods, moving with a calmness that did not belong to a night like this. It wasn't bouncing like a flashlight beam. It wasn't sweeping like a drone searchlight. It glided, steady, deliberate, almost like someone walking ahead with a lantern held close to their chest. Sarah didn't wait for permission. She took a step forward, then another, pushing past branches that scratched her arms. "That's not a reflection," she insisted, her voice rising with a strange mixture of fear and hope. Someone is showing us the way." Deputy Daniels hesitated only a second before signaling 2 officers. "Stay close," he ordered. "If she's moving in, we move in." The forest thickened quickly. Fallen trunks forced them to crawl or climb. Puddles swallowed their shoes. And yet, the light remained in sight, hovering just far enough to follow, never fading, never flickering. At times it paused, as if waiting for them to catch up. Then, as they reached a narrow clearing surrounded by collapsed branches, the glow stopped completely, and slowly dimmed, dissolving into the night air as though it had finished its task. A faint sound followed, a small, trembling whimper. Sarah froze, her heart slamming against her ribs. Daniel swung his light toward the sound, and there, curled beside a fallen cedar tree, was Evan, mud-streaked but sitting upright, eyes wide and dazed. Sarah let out a broken sob and dropped to her knees. Before anyone could speak, Evan whispered, almost calmly, "The lady in blue told me to wait here. She said you were coming." For a long moment, nobody spoke. The beam of Deputy Daniels's flashlight trembled slightly, not because his grip was weak, but because nothing about what they were seeing made sense. Evan looked exhausted, his clothes soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead. Yet there wasn't a single scratch on him, not one. "Buddy, how did you get all the way out here?" Daniels asked quietly. Evan blinked, still dazed. "She walked with me. The lady in blue." She held my hand. One of the younger officers exchanged a glance with his partner. There were no adult footprints anywhere. The mud was deep, untouched except for the child's light steps, steps that somehow passed areas where even trained officers struggled to cross without slipping. They scanned the clearing, no lanterns, no discarded gear, no tracks, no drone lights, no rescue flares. Nothing that could explain the blue glow they had all witnessed. When the K-9 unit arrived minutes later, the handler frowned at the readings. "There's no scent trail of any adult near him," he said. "None. It's like he was just placed here." Sarah held her son tightly, her tears soaking his hair. Evan added softly, "She told me not to be scared. She said Mom would find me soon." Daniels knelt beside them, lowering his voice. "Ma'am, I've been doing this for 24 years. Kids don't end up deep in storm-damaged woods without injuries, and they don't get guided through terrain like this, not without someone leaving evidence." He paused, searching for words he wasn't used to saying on duty. "Whatever happened out here, it wasn't anything human." Back at the edge of the woods, paramedics wrapped Evan in warm blankets and checked him carefully. His vitals were steady. No signs of shock, no bruises, no sprains, nothing that matched the miles of broken forest he would have had to cross. Sarah watched them examine him, her hands still trembling, but now from something entirely different than fear, relief, awe, and a dawning realization she couldn't ignore. When one medic asked Evan again how he stayed calm through the night, the boy answered without hesitation, "She stayed with me, the lady in blue. She smiled and said, 'I'd be okay.'" Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth as tears filled her eyes. That color, the soft glowing blue, she had only seen it once before, in the mantle of a statue of the Virgin Mary her grandmother kept in her old Texas parish. A statue Sarah had stopped visiting years ago, back when faith felt distant and life felt too busy. But tonight, everything was different. 2 days later, with Evan already laughing and running around the living room as if nothing had happened, Sarah asked her husband if they could visit church again, just to give thanks. He agreed immediately. He had seen too much in those woods to argue otherwise. At Sunday Mass, Evan placed a small bouquet before the statue of Our Lady. As he walked back, he whispered to Sarah, "That's her. That's the lady." And in that quiet, holy moment, a family that had drifted for years felt something gentle pull them home again, not by force, but by grace. In moments of deepest fear, when human strength collapses, heaven often draws closest. Sarah stood in the woods that night as a mother completely undone, terrified, powerless, unable to protect her child. And it was precisely in that vulnerability that Our Lady appeared. The gentle blue light, the calming presence Evan described, and the way it guided him through a dangerous forest reveal a truth the Church has repeated for centuries. Mary comes quickly to the aid of those who are most fragile, especially mothers and children. The search team had nearly suspended the mission. The woods were too damaged, the night too dangerous, and hope too thin to justify going deeper. Yet it was in that final moment, when human effort had reached its limit, that the blue light appeared. This mirrors many stories of faith. Heaven often moves when we have nothing left to rely on but trust. Miracles are rarely about spectacle. They are heaven's gentle answer to desperation. When we cannot go further, God steps in with what we could never do on our own. Most families return to faith slowly, through time and reflection. But some returns happen in a single night, one moment that shifts the entire direction of a household. For Sarah's family, Evan's disappearance could have ended in tragedy. Instead, it became the catalyst that reopened the door of grace. The fear, the search, the mysterious protection, the discovery, all of it softened hearts that had grown distant from church life. God often uses the very moments we fear most to bring us back to the place we had forgotten, His presence. Even trained officers, men accustomed to emergencies, investigations, and evidence, stood speechless that night. No footprints, no scent trail, no physical source for the blue light, no rational way to explain how a child survived terrain that injured adults. And yet Evan's testimony was simple and unwavering. "The lady in blue stayed with me." This reminds us that faith is not meant to replace reason, but to complete it. There are moments when heaven breaks through the natural world, not to confuse us, but to remind us we are never alone.
Thank you for watching Touched by Grace. Every story here is created with love, faith, and real human work. If you enjoy these stories, please subscribe and stay blessed.